Walk with me around my neighborhood as I point out different aspects of housing that are challenging, if not illegal, to build that could help with our housing crisis. Before we head out the door, we got to talk about this, missing middle housing. Missing middle housing refers to the housing that we generally don't see developed in America. We're really good at this sort of single family home, and then eventually when the problem gets so bad, we see things like this, huge buildings and development. And this housing isn't missing because the market decided that this housing isn't good or affordable. It's missing because of artificial zoning laws we've put in place. Now, I live in a beautiful historical neighborhood with wonderful homes. Most of what I'm going to show you are examples that are over 100 years old. So if someone comes at me with the comments that these types of buildings destroy the character of the neighborhood, you're going to see most of these examples are the character of the neighborhood. This first one is this building behind me right here. It's a duplex. Duplex is a building that allows for 2 separate dwellings, a triplex 3, quad 4, and these are illegal by right to build in most neighborhoods in most towns. But there are other things to that building that are making it illegal to build. Building itself takes up too much of the footprint of the yard. If you think, wait, water runoff is a problem, that's good. Note that they could pave their whole yard and it wouldn't matter. It's not really about the water runoff. Most zoning laws that discriminate against housing don't actually call out that type of housing. They often use things like the steep or grade of the hill, historical character of the neighborhood, as I mentioned before, water runoff, etc., to make reasons to discriminate against types of housing. Another thing that duplex doesn't comply with is setback requirement. A setback requirement requires houses to be pushed further back in the lot to allow for a front yard. And you might be thinking, yes, this is part of what I mean by historical character in the neighborhood. I don't want ugly buildings that don't have a yard. But check out this house I found in Colorado Springs when I was there a week ago. It's a duplex right on the sidewalk. It's beautiful. You might think, I want a yard. I want a front yard. That's fine. We're not saying that you can't live in that. We're saying if people want that instead, they should be able to have that. Now with duplexes and triplexes and quads getting placed on lots, you're doubling, tripling, quadrupling the efficiency of that lot. Next, I want to point out the most popular form of housing whenever I talk about this. It's the cottage court. Cottage courts are small starter homes situated on 1 or 2 lots with a centralized yard or public area. Young people love these both for the potential affordability of starting off in a smaller home. If you're single or a young couple without kids, you don't need a huge house, but also the enhanced community benefits as all the entrances are facing each other. Now, what keeps these cottage courts from being built in my city? One thing is that they're held to a stricter code known as the IBC, International Building Code, whereas the more ubiquitous single-family home is held to the IRC, International Residence Code. And you might think, wait a second, isn't safety a good thing? Don't we want these places to be safe? In 1911, a man by the name of Lawrence Vaylor was speaking on behalf of the National Housing Association. And what he says is going to blow your mind because he said the quiet part out loud. Do everything possible in our laws to encourage the construction of private dwellings and even 2-family dwellings because those 2-family houses are the least objectionable type. So he wants more single-family dwellings. If you read on, you'll notice that he doesn't think zoning would get passed based on that. If we require multiple dwellings to be fireproof and thus increase the cost of construction, if we require stairs to be fireproof, even where there are only 3 families, if we require fire escapes and a host of other things, all dealings with fire protection, we are on safe grounds because that can be justified as a legitimate exercise of the police power. And our laws let most of the provisions relate solely to multiple dwellings and allow our private houses and 2-family houses to be built with no fire protection whatsoever. It was never about the fire protection. And so that cottage court back then, having to comply with IBC, had to put a sprinkler system in the back unit. Never mind if you have a house that stretches all the way to the back of the yard, it doesn't need fire protection. And think of it, if you're a developer and you just paid a premium for this empty lot in my neighborhood, you could build 5 units that you sell for $150,000 a piece. That's a $750,000 development on that 1 yard. Instead, they're going to build a $650,000 home, make less money as a developer, provide less housing, and at a much higher price point, simply because that's what they are allowed to build. Another solution is the backyard cottage, aka the mother-in-law suite, aka accessory dwelling unit or ADU. If you walk down the alleyways in my neighborhood, you'll see apartments like this, lean-tos built onto garages like this, and houses like that. Provide smaller, more affordable units within the neighborhood so that even if they're bigger, more historical, expensive homes, there's more economic diversity because of the accessory dwelling units in the back. Now, when a neighborhood gets maxed out on its zoning, that's when prices go up. One of the first pressure valves that you can use to release is to allow for the building of ADUs. Cities like Austin and Minneapolis have seen rent prices get curved when everyone else is going up, have done so in part by legalizing ADUs and duplexes and triplexes by right at any part of the city. But even when legalized, they're really hard to finance. It's hard for a bank to put a loan on something where it doesn't own the property underneath it, and your bank doesn't want to take on the additional risk of increasing your mortgage per se. But one of the things you can do is legalize subdividing lots, or what are called flag lots. For example, when I was in Colorado Springs, there was a house like this with a smaller house behind it and just a walkway to that house. In Chattanooga, we wouldn't legalize this because there's no driveway to the house. But this is basically saying you can park on the same street as them and just walk to your house. It's called a flag lot because it's shaped like a flag. That problem doesn't even exist for corner lots like this one, where they basically sold their backyard and let a person build a house because their backyard faced the street. If this person were to try to build this now, they couldn't do it. But if they were able to subdivide their lot, they could get a separate bank loan to build this. And technically they own two properties and they can build a house. Minimum lot sizes prohibit this from happening. So you can even legalize ADUs, but financially it's out of reach for 99% of homeowners because they're not allowed to subdivide their lot. Lastly, small-scale neighborhood apartments. Apartments like this are illegal, if not impossible to build, in part because of what we said earlier, the IBC, the fire code it has to attain. For example, a lot of these smaller buildings have to have 2 fire escapes. It just means a disproportionate amount of the construction is just put to egress. A lot of states are trying to legalize what are called single-stair apartments. But the other thing that would make this impossible to build is parking minimum. These units only have 7 off-street parking spaces. Parking mandates are the easiest thing for a city to get rid of. Start making housing more abundant and affordable. Chattanooga has more downtown parking within a mile of its downtown than Dallas, LA, Atlanta, and yet there's still not enough parking whenever there's an event right here or right here. You will never have enough parking. But what's ironic about this is that the same people who are bullish on requiring parking mandates would never in a million years think it would be okay to have a housing mandate that says for every building you build, you have to allow so many units of free housing. The reason I'm bringing this up is my mayor is talking about the affordable housing policy change. And just so you know, I don't disagree with these things. I love them, and I have good friends who've worked tirelessly on some of these points. But ironically, he left a blank space right here. And this is where I think missing middle housing should be. And you might think, John, missing middle housing is small and tiny. What difference will it make? Or I don't want my neighborhood to look like some ugly, clustered beehive full of too many people. You want a nice looking street that looks like this, right? Just like this. But here's the thing, this is actually full of missing middle housing. You didn't even notice it. On what would normally have 2 dwelling units actually has 11 dwelling units, including this cottage court with this cute as hell courtyard. Let's talk about a downtown, which would look beautiful if it looked like this, like in Charleston with all these historical buildings and courtyards and greenway. The problem is this is illegal to build in Charleston now, and something like this is subsidized. And this actually has less housing units than this. And they both have the same amount of retail square footage. But this does so without any gardens or porches, just a lot of parking spots. And you might think, I hate stuff like this. Look at this small old classical house next to these huge apartments. This contrast is ugly. This is what we would call sudden intensification. The need became so great, the dam broke and this house had to be built. This doesn't happen when you allow for incremental intensification. Chuck Marohn puts it like this: every neighborhood has the right to be safe from overnight change of stuff like this. But also every neighborhood should have the right to develop. When you have zoning reforms that try to freeze a place in time, popular neighborhoods get maxed out and become really expensive. If you live in Chattanooga, email the mayor and applaud him on these changes, but point to this missing bullet point and discuss missing middle housing. In Tennessee, we can opt in to IBC to make this housing easier to build. We could decrease minimum lot sizes, get rid of parking mandates like cities like Birmingham already have, and allow for duplexes to be built by right throughout town. All of this would increase our tax revenue without affecting anyone's individual taxes or having to allocate money. These are free changes. But also reach out to your city council member, because the mayor likes to point out that he doesn't write legislation, and city councilors like to point out that they're not a strong mayor. And even the best city council members who want the things I'm talking about feel alone because the only people that reach out to them are retirees who don't want change. DM me and I'll show you how to find your city councilor. If you're outside of Chattanooga, consider having groups like Kronberg and Associates come talk about zoning, or a group like Neighborhood Evolution, Incremental Development Alliance, or for smaller towns, Small Nation Strong. All of these people are doing a ground-up approach combating the housing crisis.